G'day guys and welcome to the Centre Bounce for this my updated team preview after the practice games. Stay tuned. Yeah, it's a really interesting time now. We're in this sort of limbo area where we've just come out of the practice games and we're now sort of looking forward to round zero with extreme optimism, but also a little bit of trepidation because these games coming up in round zero are official games. They are not like these practice ones where the players are going to sort of not go all out. This is now an official serious game where there are premiership points up for grabs. And there are a lot of relevant, Supercoach relevant players in these games that are going to be featured in opening round, which I think I will be reacting to a lot more, I suppose, than the games that we've seen here now in the practice games. And that's sort of the approach that I'm taking with this team. Doing my best to still be calm, not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't be overly reactionary when it comes to these games because it is just a preseason practice game. The established stars don't have anything to prove. We know who they are, we know what they can do. It's an opportunity for the lesser known players, for the lesser lights, for the role players to stake a claim in their sides. So, having that in mind, this is what I'm rocking with. All right, let's build it together, starting from scratch as we did last time. So we started from the back line. We got Nick Dacos. Okay, no surprise. The practice games, I know there's a lot of people who decided to go and jump on him after what we saw in the practice game. But for me personally, did we really learn anything new about this guy from the practice game that he doesn't have to try particularly hard to score very well, that he is an incredible talent, that he's getting a lot more time around the ball than before? Like, we haven't learned anything new about Nick Dacos, and all those people who didn't have him at the start realizing, holy crap, could be scary fading him. Well done. Thank you for coming to the realization that I think a lot of other people had before the practice game happened. So we haven't learned anything new about Dacos. So he was in the side already before the practice games. He's still in there. Tom Stewart, 29% ownership. I'm not entirely sure if he's dropped in ownership after the practice game because he really didn't try. And I was pretty happy about that. I was hoping that more people would jump off him because of that. But, still decently owned. And I think it's going to obviously be a top 6 for sure. Harry Shazel, again, he didn't really try particularly hard in that first half either. Was really cruising, 41% ownership. So, yeah, his ownership just going up and up over time, especially after that first practice game when he had 42 disposals. For me, it's all about the role. And as soon as he doesn't have, I saw that his role was behind the ball. Even before, really caring about how many disposals he got, whether it be 42 or 25, doesn't really matter. It's really about the role. And it seems like he's behind the ball again, where we love to see him. And if he continues to still be there, he'll be a top 6 defender, I think. We then continue with, of course, Hayden Young. Didn't worry about him. I never had any heart attacks after the first game. He's been in our teams for much of the preseason for a reason. And it's because he's on the ball and that's the role that he played. Only the 40. I thought he'd be more than 41% ownership. That's not too bad. Pretty good. I think for his price point, he is absolute value. We then go all the way down. Now, I have floated not having this guy in the team, but he has been named for round 0, and I'll be very happy to see and have a gauge of how he plays in round 0, what sort of role he's got. Is he really behind the ball? Is he really perhaps going to be playing as a high half forward? I do want to see how he plays. I want to see how he looks to the eye because we haven't had a chance to see him in any of those practice games. This will be the first time we see him in a long time. So I'm keen to have a look at him, and if he doesn't pass my eye test, then I'm good. I will pass him up and go for someone cheaper, like a Gipkis. But I don't have Gipkis at the moment, like last time, as you guys know. I've got these same 3 rookies. They all performed very well, I thought, in the preseason games. It definitely didn't embarrass themselves. I think Reed's ability now, and he's now with the injury to unfortunately to Jordan Ridley, think that just really solidifies him even more, to be honest. Caulfield, I think he had some good games. I think he had some decent minutes, and he had some decent defending work. He might be fighting with a Buku Kamas, and then there's obviously Dale and Daniel, and some people are still to come back into the side, so it might not be him. It could be a Pink, could be a McDonald from Fremantle, who will probably lose his spot when Cox comes back. So whoever's going to be that last spot there, we will figure it out when they're named. We then move to the midfield. It is, of course, Marcus Bontempelli. He was in the side before the practice games, and I think more people are sort of realizing, holy shit, if we fade this guy, we could be in big trouble. All right. He's down to 10%. Very nice. It just continues to drop. Continues to drop. He is one of those players who does not give a shit in preseason. He's one of those players who should not give a shit in preseason because he's got injury history in the past. Leave the serious stuff, leave the good stuff for the season proper. And that's exactly what this guy has done. He doesn't have to prove anything to anyone. His capabilities, we know what he's capable of. He had the role. He attended the CBAs. He just didn't try. He gave away a bunch of free kicks, had some clangers. It is what it is. I'm very happy about this. We've got a pod. We have a pod in LDU. I am not going to react over the top to a bad practice game. He had a very bad practice game last year. He only had about 50 odd, and then he started the season like a house on fire. So LDU, I've done the research. I've had him in my preseason game, in my preseason team, all preseason long. I'm not about to run away and be scared because of a practice game. Let the number continue to drop. Give me a nice little pod for myself. Another pod, Darcy Parish. His ownership's going up. It was at like 3% before it's doubled. He's now up to 6% ownership. So again, he's still a pod. Obviously, you guys know I've been on him during this preseason. I love my boy DP3. I think he's worthy of selection. His disposal efficiency is being improved on. He went over 80% against Geelong. Just, I suppose, to show other people what I've been talking about in terms of his real hard work, working with David Rath, who is a new, I suppose, a biomechanist almost coach who's really teaching him how to kick as well as other players in our team. He's cleaned up his disposal. He'll get some more score assists that way as well. He's going to have 2-meter Peter and Langford both playing right from round one. He didn't have a key forward to kick the ball to last year for the first half of the season, and that takes away a lot of the effective kicks because they can get turned over really easily that way. We now have 2-minute Peter who's going to bring the ball to ground. He won't be outmarked. At least there will be effective kicks, maybe some score assists as well. In addition to that, our midfield mix has changed up a little bit. I think it's going to be even more favorable for him. He'll be definitely getting some 1-2 action. He's never going to be tagged. Darcy Parish, I think there is, given the amount of volume that he gets of the football, just a slight increase in his disposal efficiency will go a long way to bumping up that average of his. I can see him giving the top 8 a fair crack. That's why I've got him in my side for just about all of this preseason. We then move to a fellow bomber in crime, Nick Martin. I don't have to say more. I've been raving about this guy all preseason long. This kid is sensational. I wish we had 23 Nick Martins on our side, and his ownership now is almost at 20%. I will not be surprised that it will be well and truly over that come round one. Now, this guy is a new person in my side, and it's Ollie Wines. I promise I'm not trying to make a pod midfield, a midfield full of pods, but Ollie Wines, Ken Hinkley said he was fit, that he was back to his full strength, and it looked like it in the practice games. He had a lot of CBAs that he was attending, even with Butters in the side in the first practice game. So I definitely think he's priced at about 83. If he goes like 100, then he's making 100,000 for me. And looking at his, I suppose his scoring over the last 3 years before last year's injury interrupted one, he averaged over 100 for each of those 3 seasons. Plus, Port Adelaide play, I think, 6 or 7 out of their first 9 at Adelaide Oval, which is ridiculous. So, think Ollie Wines could be that selection at that price. He's like almost 30k cheaper than a Crouch, and I sort of know what the midfield mix is going to look like over there at Port Adelaide, and I think he's going to get bulk CBAs in there. So for me, at that price, because I really care about my bench and making sure that I have a good bench, I could have gone a bit more expensive and gotten like a Tuke Miller, but it would have affected my bench, and I do think having a solid bench is really important. So gone Ollie Wines instead of a Tuke Miller, and I do think that he can go 100, and that would make him 100,000 on top of his starting price, which I think is really good. We then go for the trio of McKercher, Sanders, and Hustwaite. Was really hoping that Hustwaite can show me what he can do, because I was really bullish about this guy, and he was wonderful around the ball. I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater on McKercher. Yes, he didn't have the best game in that second practice game, but again, it's just a practice game. Good players don't become shit overnight. He was a lock for everybody after the first practice game. He then has a bit of a quieter one in the second one, and then we just drop everything. The amount of overreaction in this preseason has been quite remarkable. And for me, I can understand where they're all coming from, because I was in a very similar boat last year. I did get sucked in a lot by a lot of these great performances. And if anything, it almost feels like it's the players that don't necessarily do amazing in the practice games, like your LDUs, for example, that really you shouldn't be very concerned about. They don't really have anything to prove. McKercher, I think the talent speaks for itself, and the role that he plays for North Melbourne speaks for itself as well. He's playing in the back line. He's playing for North Melbourne. They're going to copper some losses, a lot of losses this year. And he's going to find the ball. He will find the ball. He'll get DPP. I'll be very happy to swing him to the back line. Sanders is a star. Hustwaite's a star. On the bench, got Matt Roberts. Just keeping an eye on him, making sure that he does play. There have been some injuries to the Swans. Now, I know in that second practice game where he went bananas, there was no Dane Rampy and there was no Seagull. There was no Lloyd, no Jake Lloyd. Those are two massive outs for the Swans. I assume that they are both ahead of Roberts at this point, but I am keen to see in round 0 what happens, if he's named, how he plays, where he plays, and then make a decision from that. Then got Jai Clark, who was one of the best looking midfielders of the preseason. And then for this one, I've actually got Hugo Garcia, who seemed to have some decent time around the ball, very energetic type of player. I know the Saints really rave about him and they really like what they saw from him. Now, I'm not anticipating him to, be absolutely crazy all the time, but there was no Crouch, and there's not going to be any Crouch for the first month of football, I think. So I'm really hoping that Garcia can make me some quick money and then offload him fairly quickly. I like having the DPP as well. We get to the ruck. And of course, it is Max Gawn. He has never left my side. The only one that I'm sort of been questioning a little bit whether or not I go with this guy or not is Brodie Grundy. But again, I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. You look at the team that Sydney fielded in that second practice game. They had 5 tools. They had 5 of them. And they're not going to play that big, I don't think, in the regular season. They had a lot of ruck going towards Peanut Laddams, and I don't think that they've recruited Grundy to be sharing the ruck with Laddams. Grundy just didn't care, and rightfully so. He doesn't have to care in this second practice game. He's playing in round 0. We want to make sure, and he wants to make sure, that he's right to go for round 0 where he can perform really well against Melbourne. He's got Max Gawn coming up. You know what I mean? He doesn't have the luxury to risk an injury in a practice game against Gold Coast. That's not his, or against Brisbane, whatever it was. It's not his responsibility to pop off in the preseason. He tried hard. We saw what he did in the first practice game, and it looked really good. I think Grundy is going to be fine for that price. Don't worry about it. And Naismith, I think, is going to be a playing R3, and you always take the playing R3 option every time. Sam Flanders is still here. Sam Flanders is still here. He's been a lock in my forward line all preseason long. I anticipate that he's going to be a very highly ranked forward by the end of the season. I'm not letting a practice game throw me off him. Obviously, I'll be looking in round 0 to see how he performs, whether or not they give the ball a lot more to Humphrey than they give the ball to him. But I think he's ahead of Humphrey, and especially in light of those comments made by Dimmer Hardwick over the preseason. I already had Flanders in my team before that comment. Before that, I think this guy is an absolute gun. He's got the role. He's been playing with the midfield. Flanders is still in my team until I've seen enough reason for me to get rid of him. It was just a practice game. Watch a bunch of people realize after round 0 when he performs really well, oh shit, we need to get him back in. If he doesn't perform well in round 0, then so be it. I'll trade him out. But at this point in time, I'm not going to let a practice game. We're talking about practice, like AI. What AI said. We're talking about practice here. I'm not fading Flanders at this point. We then go to the next guy who made his way into the team following a very positive preseason, not necessarily just because of how he performed, but also because of the role that he had. Very promising role, playing behind the ball, getting involved, accumulating a lot of disposals. And it wasn't necessarily at 100% efficiency, but he also was on kick-ins. He got a lot of kick-ins, obviously courtesy of St Kilda's missing a lot. But I really like Fisher. I liked his game. Think that if he can stay fit and healthy on the park, then he is a top 6 forward. And for that, I'm willing to take the risk. Yes, he's had 2 soft tissue concerns in the preseason, which is something that I absolutely hate. But, and it's a big but, if he's going to be a top 6 forward, then it's worthwhile spending less than $400,000 on an injury-prone player. And if it doesn't work, then I can literally trade him to anybody else. James Jordan in the side did wonderful on a wing. I don't expect him to accumulate that much of the football, over 30 disposals, but they've had a lot of it. They've got an injury to Adams now, and now what does that mean? Does James Jordan get a chance to play more on the ball as opposed to just playing on a wing exclusively? I don't know. It's up in the air, but I do think that he's got a rock-solid job security, of course, and I think he's capable of scoring decently well, even if he is on a wing with a little bit of mid-time. So yes, James Jordan's in there. Got Billings in here. Wasn't a big fan of his first game. Definitely showed me a bit more in the second with his clean ball use, I suppose, in terms of hitting these safe lead-up options, getting involved in the play, scored very well off not too many disposals. I'm not anticipating him to set the world on fire, but I can see him averaging me over 70 points on a regular basis to make me his money. I was this guy's lawyer last week. I was defending him on the stream, and he, and I called it. I'm like, watch all these people who jumped off him, trade him back in. All these people who were trading him out for 5 after that first practice game. I said, watch. They're all going to get him back in again after practice match 2. Look what's happened. It's back up to 73%. So, Harley Reid, if you ever need a lawyer, hit me up, my friend. We then obviously have Sexton, who's had a wonderful preseason to date. He was always on the radar in the preseason when we heard that he was playing off halfback. We saw in the practice games that role persisted, even with Powell in the side. So, well done to Sexton. We then have Darcy Wilson. This guy could very well be a fieldable option. This kid was a star. We've been raving about him all preseason after speaking with the Saints TV boys in their Saints preview video, and we've known very early on that this guy is so highly rated, playing on a wing, up and down the ground, pushing deep into defense to help out as well, helping with transition. He's a star, this kid. He's an absolute jet. I can't believe he's only in 55% of teams. And then the final player is Harvey Thomas, who looked really good. Again, I'm surprised, only in 3% of teams, which is ridiculous. So I've got quite a few players in this team who are fairly low ownership. Now, that could mean one or two things. Either I start off the season really strong, or I can start it off a little bit weak. If my pods underperform, then I could be left behind the ballpark, behind the eight ball. But the thing for me is I really care about, I suppose, staying true to myself, backing in the research that I've done over the course of this preseason, um, as well as taking into account what we've seen in the practice games, not in relation to performance, but in relation to role. Now, I'm thinking and I'm hoping and praying that this more measured, calm approach is going to hold me in good stead, which is the complete opposite of what I did last year, where I was reacting to absolutely everything, watching all these practice games like a hawk, just and really making wholesale changes to my team just to reflect how those practice games went. I think this year I'm a lot more confident in what I'm trying to do, and having round zero definitely is really appealing for some of these really important players. James Jordan is in there, Billings is in there, Flanders is in there, Grundy's in there, Gawn's in there, Roberts is in there, Dacos is in there. So I've got a few of these players who are playing in these early buys that I'm really keen to see. Zach Williams as well. And I really am looking forward to watching these round zero games. I really, really am. Because I get to watch the games with full clarity and seeing exactly how these teams intend to play, what their roles are going to be. There's no more need to hide and keep cards close to your chest anymore, because you're now, for these teams that are playing in round zero, their season officially starts now. So I'm really keen to see how that goes. Let me know, guys, in the comments down below what you think of my current iteration. It is not a $0 team anymore. I've actually made a few more $0 teams since that previous $0 team. I don't know what it is. I seem to have a secret knack for using every dollar that I possibly have. But with this current setup, I do think I am very solid all over the ground. I think I've only got one rookie on the field, Zach Reid, who I'm pretty bullish on. I love this kid to bits. I think I've got these three who are the safest when it comes to the rookies fielding on the field. Ollie Wines is obviously one that I haven't had in my team at all during the preseason, but he's going to be a contested ball winner. And that's what I want from my mids. I want mids who are going to be around the ball in the midfield. Wines, contested ball winner, going to be in the midfield. Parrish, contested ball winner, going to be in the midfield. LDU, contested ball winner, going to be in the midfield. Bont is a contested ball winner, going to be in the midfield. Like, these guys, margin's going to be the swing from halfback. Nick Dacos. What's better than one Nick Dacos? Two Nick Dacoses. So that's sort of what I'm lining up with, the line of reasoning. And it could be a little bit weaker in the midfield because I'm going strong in the forward line. I do genuinely believe that this forward line is the peak forward line setup. Feel free to let me know in the comments down below if you think that that is incorrect and you think that there's a better forward six to have on the field. But I genuinely reckon that these six are absolutely absolute bangers, I think, and I'm really happy with this setup. I think Flanders and Fisher both going to be in the top six. Jordan, Billing, Reid, these guys, Sexton could be a keeper all year if he maintains that role. Jordan, Billing, and Reid, these three are going to make a lot of money for us if they continue to perform the way that they have. And I'm really keen about that. And I can't wait to see Wines hopefully just absolutely dominate in the carry that preseason form and that role through to the regular season, where he's going to continue to get bulk CBAs, and especially if that ankle injury to Butters is a bit more serious. As you notice, Butters is not here, and I did have Butters in my side initially as opposed to Ollie Wines. Butters, yeah, it was a precautionary ankle injury, but for me, he had an ankle injury 2 weeks prior, and then he sort of just fell over and rolled it again. So now this now counts as a recurring ankle injury in my book, because it's happened once and then it's happened again. That is the definition of recurring. And it was just a practice game. And Butters plays very kamikaze himself. So wouldn't be surprised if they're going to try and shelter him a little bit. He is one of their most important players. And I wouldn't be surprised if protecting him from himself by playing him a bit more forward could be a way to manage that ankle a little bit. But here there is some time between, obviously when the ankle was rolled to round one, I could be over exaggerating it, could be a little bit of a hypocrite myself at the moment, talking about doing my best not to overreact and then overreacting to the ankle. But I just think it is what it is. He's rolled it once 2 weeks ago. He's now rolled it again the second time. I don't want to sort of risk a third time. I'd much rather cement myself, especially in the midfield, with these players who have had completely uninterrupted pre-seasons. I know Bont was coming off an ankle surgery last year, but that was just a clean out of the gunk that was in there. He's now completely free movement, no gunk in that ankle. He is a completely healthy man, and he's been completely healthy all 2024. So I just want these players in here who haven't missed a beat in their preseason to be on my field. Butters has now caused me a question mark, has now given me a question mark. Now, obviously, I could get him instead of LDU. They're very similar price, but I'm just going to go with the guy who has had an uninterrupted preseason so far. Okay. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed my updated team review, my team reveal coming out of the practice games. As you can see, that it's pretty guns and rookies with a few mid prices here and there to help, I suppose, stabilize the team, not have all of the rookies on the field, because I feel like if you're going pure guns and rookies, you'll be fielding too many rookies on the field, which in a best 18 format isn't ideal. So I really hope you guys let me know in the comments down below what you think of my team. Have I done a decent job staying true to myself, not overreacting, and coming out with a fairly structured team, which I think can see me start the season pretty positively? For me, my problem the last couple of years has been the slow start and then trading my way back from being behind the pack. Hopefully with this one, I do have a few early buy players, Flanders, Dacos, Grundy, Gorn. But outside of those, I do think that I've got a lot of the gun rookies. Obviously, there's some like a Lazaro and a Windsor, for example, who are a bit more expensive that I don't have on my bench. Definitely happy to be convinced otherwise during the early so round zero, when we see Windsor in action. If he shows me that he's worth the 180k selection, then I'll find a way to get him in. But right now, this is how my team looks. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about it. If you like what you've seen here today, please drop us a like and a subscription if you're new. And please make sure you hit that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the content, whether it be video or stream, that we pump out all the time. We've got a couple of live streams every week. The Monday night live streams at 7:30 every single week. And then the 5:30 drive home video, the live stream. Yes, Big J drives in his car and he talks with all of you guys. I also feature in there as well. Don't worry about it. We also have a couple of our competitions, as you know by now, or as you should know by now, the tipping and the Supercoach. The description will have all the information, links, in order for you to join both of those things, because here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so that you don't have to.